You know how, in Dota 2, everyone's got that one hero they always go back to? It's usually the fan favourites. Pudge, Phantom Assassin, Sniper, you know, the ones that get cheers even from people who don't play the game. But let's switch things up for a second and talk about the other side of the spectrum, the forgotten heroes. There's a whole squad sitting at the bottom of the pick rate charts, neglected and picking up dust. These are the heroes nobody picks. Not because they're bad, okay, sometimes they are, but because they're either ridiculously complicated, underwhelming, or let's be honest, not as exciting as others. Let's start with a classic case, Chen. The original micromanagement king from Dota's Warcraft 3 roots has always been a hero for the ambitious. Back then, controlling an army of jungle creeps to outplay opponents made him stand out. Even now, his gameplay revolves around dominating the map with stuns, slows, heals, and buffs. But here's the catch. Chen demands coordination, foresight, and synergy, which are often missing in chaotic pub games. Chen officially joined Dota 2 on July 1, 2011, as part of a major hero expansion. Initially, he didn't make waves, until Navi and their legendary captain Puppy showcased his potential on the big stage. Watching Puppy on Chen was like witnessing a masterclass in strategy. He ruled the jungle, timed creep abilities with surgical precision, and led his team to iconic victories, making Chen a staple in competitive play. However, as the meta evolved, Chen began to struggle. His reliance on early game dominance became a liability in longer matches, and his global heal felt less impactful in prolonged late game fights. Nerfs to mechanics, like the infamous fountain hooking strategy, further pushed him out of the spotlight. Over time, Chen faded from prominence, replaced by heroes better suited to the game's shifting pace. Valve tried to revive Chen with buffs and reworks. The introduction of Aghanim's Scepter, allowing control of ancient creeps, the talent system adding more creeps, and new abilities like Divine Favor and Martyrdom, all aimed to make him more viable. But even with these updates, Chen remained a niche pick, appealing mainly to players with elite micromanagement skills, like Puppy. Today, Chen is a shadow of his former self. He's a hero that rewards mastery, but demands so much that most players avoid him. While he still shines in the hands of a few pros, for most, Chen remains a relic of Dota's past, a hero designed for the few, not the many. Now, moving on to another forgotten hero, and that is Visage. Visage is one of Dota's oldest heroes and has roots dating back to patch 0.60 in the Warcraft 3 mod. Initially, his abilities, Frenzy, Blink, and Death Pact, felt experimental and unrefined. By patch 4.0, his identity began to take shape, with Gravekeeper's Cloak, Soul Assumption, and his iconic familiars. These changes gave him a unique blend of durability, burst damage, and micromanagement, though he never captured mainstream popularity. When Visage debuted in Dota 2 on June 2, 2012, his design seemed promising. His tankiness and high damage potential, coupled with his powerful familiars, made him a strong pick on paper. However, his steep learning curve, particularly in managing familiars, deterred many players, making him a niche choice early on. Visage found brief success during the International 3, where pros showcased his aggressive tri-lane potential. His familiars, stuns, and damage were devastating in coordinated play, but as the meta evolved, faster, more versatile heroes outshined him. Reliance on snowballing early made Visage a liability in high-speed skirmishes. Valve attempted to revive him with buffs and reworks. Patches introduced talents that enhanced familiar damage and utility, and his Aghanim Scepter upgrade added a third familiar. Later, Silent as the Grave gave him and his familiars invisibility and increased damage, offering new tactical opportunities. While these changes appeal to skilled players, they only widened the gap between casual and competitive viability. Visage saw sporadic use in pro games, particularly by specialists like 33, whose mastery highlighted the hero's potential. Yet, outside the competitive scene, his complexity and reliance on team synergy kept him from widespread use. Today, Visage lingers as a niche pick, a hero for those willing to master his intricacies. Though patches continue to tweak him, his high skill ceiling ensures he remains an underappreciated relic of Dota's past, quietly awaiting his next resurgence. Meanwhile, let's turn our attention to another overlooked hero, Enchantress, the Queen of the Forest, has been a part of Dota since its earliest days, bringing a mix of charm and lethality to the game. Her signature style revolves around enchanting enemy creeps and dishing out devastating range damage with Impetus, a spear attack that scales with distance. While undeniably powerful, her glass cannon nature requires exceptional positioning and skill to avoid becoming an easy target. Fragile but deadly, Enchantress remains a high-risk, high-reward hero. Debuting in Warcraft 3 patch 6.00, Enchantress came with a unique kit centered on sustain and utility. Nature's Attendants provided consistent healing. Enchant allowed her to control creeps or slow enemies, and her passive, Untouchable, punished attackers by drastically slowing their attack speed. Her ultimate, Impetus, delivered increasing damage the further her target was, creating a dynamic ranged threat. These abilities set the stage for a hero capable of picking off enemies while sustaining herself in fights. Enchantress officially arrived in Dota 2 on August 18, 2011, shortly after the first international, but she struggled to find widespread appeal. Her demanding playstyle, reliant on precise positioning and managing enchanted creeps, deterred many casual players. However, those who mastered her found her to be a dominant early game force, capable of controlling the jungle and pressuring lanes with ease. Her prominence peaked when professional players began using her to punish over-aggression, showcasing her ability to gank and kite effectively. Despite her strengths, the evolving meta exposed her weaknesses: squishiness, reliance on early momentum, and limited crowd control. Over the years, Valve tried to keep her relevant with buffs to Nature's Attendants and Impetus, as well as changes to Enchant, but she remained a niche pick. Patch 7.00 brought talents that boosted her damage and healing, while 7.23 introduced neutral items that amplified her ranged damage. Yet, even with these improvements, Enchantress struggled to find consistency. Today, she thrives in the hands of experienced players who can maximize her early game potential, but for most, she remains a situational, high-skill hero. But before we wrap it up, let's take a look at some honourable mentions. Let's start with Pudge, the infamous Butcher. While he's widely recognised as one of the most iconic heroes in Dota 2, in most games, he's either banned early on or picked up quickly by both teams, which means players rarely get a chance to choose him. In the pro scene, Pudge is a rare sight. Sure, he's known for his iconic hooks and devastating potential, but outside of special occasions, you're unlikely to see him on the battlefield. Since patch 6.82, Pudge has only been picked 18 times at the professional level, and his win rate, a consistent but underwhelming 50%. So what gives? The truth is, Pudge is a hero built for chaos, thriving in the wild, unpredictable nature of pub games where individual skill is often the deciding factor. When a player locks in Pudge in a lower tier match, it's a declaration: I'm here to hook, I'm here to roam, and I'm here to make you regret stepping into my lane. With the buffs to his hook range in patch 6.83, it became even easier to isolate and eliminate squishy supports before they even had a chance to react. But in the pro scene, the story is different. The role of punishing out-of-position enemies is better suited to heroes like Batrider, who can drag carries back into the fray and set up crucial follow-up kills for the team. Pudge, on the other hand, thrives on being a one-man army in pubs, but in the more coordinated, strategic environment of professional play, he's simply too much of a relic. Next up, we have Kunkka, the Admiral, who's been struggling to find his place in professional Dota. While he still reigns supreme in pub games, building double Daedalus, and occasionally even a Divine Rapier, his role in the pro scene has evolved into something more cautious. Instead of going for the flashy, high-risk, high-reward plays, you're more likely to see him pick up a Black King bar and some tanky armor, focusing on staying alive and supporting his team. Kunkka, however, is a hero defined by style, flair, and those high-risk moments. The thrill of X-marking yourself, diving into a creep wave for that massive cleave, catching an unsuspecting hero with a boat to the face, and then disappearing back into the safety of your team. It's a spectacle. In the right hands, it's a playmaking highlight reel. But at the professional level, the stakes are too high to rely on reckless moves like that. A crit-dealing Kunkka with a rapier, though, is still a treat to watch, even if it's more for the thrill than for consistent performance. Now let's bring in Meepo, the hero who's either a god or complete nightmare depending on who's playing him. Meepo has always had a special relationship with the Dota community. Either you love him or you hate him. This little guy is the definition of micromanagement. If you don't know how to control multiple Meepos, you're basically a sitting duck. But if you do, you're a walking disaster for the other team. The thing is, Meepo has been pretty hit or miss in the pro scene. When he's picked, it's a spectacle. He can absolutely take over the game with his insane farming speed and insane ability to dive into fights from all angles. But that's if the player is on point. In pubs though, Meepo is a monster. In the hands of a skilled player, he can wipe entire teams, using his clones to outnumber and overwhelm the opposition. But for the pros, it's a different story. Meepo requires such a high level of skill and micro to be truly effective that many players just don't want to risk it. Plus, when it all goes wrong, it goes really wrong. Still, Meepo's presence in the game is a spectacle. It's like watching a juggler who has 10 balls in the air. When it's smooth, it's magic. When it's a disaster, well, you're watching a train wreck in slow motion. Love them or hate them, these heroes tend to sit on the sidelines when it comes to defending the Ancient. But hey, hopefully we'll see more of them in future games. Just not as position 5 Pudge. No one needs that. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments down below.